The Way of Shadows by Brent Chapter 14. Logan had insisted on going upstairs to help the Countess take care of young Kyler Stern. He was mortified, and apparently not solely because he'd lost his temper in front of Count Drake's pretty daughter. For Solon it had been an instructive 10 seconds. Count Drake and Solon were left alone. The Count led him to his office. "Why don't you sit down?" the Count said, taking his own seat across his desk. "Where are you from, Master Tofusen?" It was either courtesy or bait, Solon chuckled. "That's the first time I've been asked that question." He gestured to himself as if to say, "Just look at my skin." The Count said, "I don't see any clan rings or any scars where they've been removed." "Well, not all Sethi wear the rings." "I was under the distinct impression that they did," Count Drake said. "What is this? What are you after?" "I'm curious about who you really are, Master Tofusen." Logan Geyer is not only a fine young man, whom I regard almost as a son, he's also suddenly the lord of one of the most powerful houses in the land. I've never seen you or heard of you, and suddenly you're his advisor? That strikes me as peculiar. I don't care that you're Sethi, if you are, but I've spent some time on Hokai and Taugathu, and the only Sethi who don't pierce their cheeks are the exiles stripped of clan and family. But if you are an exile, you should have had scars from your rings being torn out, and you have none. Your knowledge of our culture is admirable, but incomplete. I am of House Tofusen, wind seekers of the royal house. My father's appointment was to Shosendi. Oh, an ambassador to the Red Mages? Yes, Shosendi accepts students from all over the world. As I had no magical talent, I received my education among the merchants and nobles, who were not as tolerant. Not having the rings made life a little easier. There's more to it than that, but I don't think the rest of my story is any of your business. Fair enough. "What took you to Seth?" Solon asked. "Slavery," the Count said. "Before I became fully part of the movement that finally ended slavery here 7 years ago, I thought a more moderate path might work. I went to Hokai to see if I could learn ways to help make slaves' lives better here." From the small size of his house, which was very small for a noble, even one as low as a count, Solon knew that Count Drake hadn't been one of the slavers who'd felt guilty about his newfound wealth. He must have been a real crusader all along. "It's totally different in Seth," Solon said. "The Year of Joy changes everything." "Yes, I advanced the idea here, even got the law passed, but the Sakage immediately spurned it. Instead of every slave being freed on the 7th year, slaves were to be freed 7 years from the beginning of their indenture. The Sakage claimed it was simpler, that it would be ridiculous to buy a slave in the 6th year and own them for only a month or a week. Of course, in practice, the Sakage's people keep records. So, where in your country the 7th year is full of celebration as every slave is freed, here the years passed and slaves were never freed. Slaves became slaves for life. They were beaten, scourged, given to the death games, their children sent to the baby farms." I've heard those became truly awful," Solon said. "The Sakage set them up, saying that they would be places where the children of prostitutes might be redeemed. Slaves, true, but redeemed. It sounded good, but it gave us places like the House of Mercy. Sorry, I shouldn't go on. It was a dark time. Is that boy ever coming down?" "Maybe we should get started," Solon said. "I don't think that this will wait, and from the way Logan was looking at your daughter, they might be talking for a while." The Count chuckled. "Are you testing me?" "Does Duke Geyer know?" "Yes, he and I are friends. Regnus is loath to demand control of Logan's flirtations, given the circumstances of his own marriage." "I'm not familiar with those. Can you enlighten me?" Solon asked. "It's not my place. Anyway, Logan and Sarah will grow out of it. What appears to be the problem?" "Katrina Geyer." "Careful," the Count said. "Did the Duke give you letters that declared his son Lord Geyer in his absence?" "Well, he spoke of it, but he had to leave quickly. He said his steward would bring them." "Lady Geyer has stolen the letters and destroyed them. Then she went to the Queen." "She went to whom?" The Count was astonished. "Is that unusual?" "They have no love for each other." "What happened?" Count Drake asked. "Lady Geyer asked to be made Logan's guardian. The king overheard them. He came in and said he would take it under advisement." "What does that mean?" Count Drake removed his pince-nez and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "It means that if he acts quickly, he can appoint a guardian for Logan." "Will Katrina Geyer do such a poor job?" Solon asked. Count Drake sighed. Legally, the king can put anyone in Logan's place that he wants, so long as they're related to him, which means almost anyone in the nobility. And once he's got a guardian in place, even Regnus won't be able to rescind the appointment. Katrina has just delivered House Geyer to the king. But you're Duke Geyer's solicitor, and he told you his wishes. Doesn't that carry any weight? Solon asked. If the king were interested in the truth, yes. As it is, to save the Geyers, we need the Geyer family parchment, the Duke's great seal, and a reckless willingness to forge a state document. The king holds court in half an hour. I'd guess this will be the first item on the agenda. There's just no time. Solon cleared his throat and produced a roll of heavy parchment and a large seal. Count Drake grinned and snatched the parchment. I think I suddenly like you, Master Tofusen. Wendell North helped me with the wording, Solon said. I thought I'd leave the signature and the seal to you. Count Drake rummaged through his desk, found a letter from the Duke, and laid it on top of the writ of guardianship. With quick, sure strokes, he forged the Duke's signature flawlessly. Count Drake looked up guiltily and said, Let's just call it an artifact of a misspent youth. Solon dribbled sealing wax on the parchment. Then here's to misspent youth. Next time, you'll move, Blint said as Azoth groaned his way back into consciousness. I don't even think I'll ever move again. My head feels like someone threw it against a wall, Blint laughed. The second time Azoth had heard him do that recently. He was sitting on the edge of Azoth's bed. You did well. They thought you were embarrassed because you got knocked down in front of Drake's daughter, so they decided it was all harmless kid stuff. The young Lord Geyer was mortified that he hit you. Apparently he's a real big, friendly giant. Never loses his temper. The fact you're about a quarter his size and Sarah was furious with him also helps. They were all quite impressed. Impressed? That's stupid. In their world, fighting has rules. So fighting means risking embarrassment and pain, and at worst, risking your looks if you get a broken nose or an unfortunate scar. It doesn't mean dying or killing. In their world, you can fight a man and then become his friend. In fact, you're going to play it so Logan does become your friend, because with a man like him, you can only come out of this as a great friend or a terrible enemy. Do you understand that, Kyler? We'll work together on your new identity soon. Yes, sir. Sir? Why didn't you want Master Tofusen to see you? That's why you made me fight Logan, isn't it? To be a distraction? Solon Tofusen is a magus. Most magi, that's male mages, can't tell if you're talented just by looking at you. On the other hand, most magi, female mages, can. There are disguises against their sight that I'll teach you later, but I didn't have the time to do it, and I didn't feel like going upstairs and jumping out a window. Azoth was confused. But he doesn't act like a mage. And how would you know? Durzo asked. Azoth didn't think saying he isn't like the mage in stories was going to please Durzo. The truth is, Durzo said, Solon hasn't told Logan or anyone else that he's a mage, and won't tell anyone either. When you know a man's secrets, you have power over him. A man's secret is his weakness. Every man has a weakness, no matter. Master Blint's voice dropped to nothing, his eyes suddenly distant, lifeless. He stood and left without a word. Azoth closed his eyes, confused. He wondered about his new master. He wondered about the guild. He wondered if Jalel had bought review. He wondered how Jarl was doing. Most of all, he wondered about Dollgirl. Hey ho, Azo! Hey ho, J.O., Azo said. Even as he gave the words the same stress he always had, Azoth felt part of himself die. This was supposed to be one of his last outings as Azoth. Soon he would have to become Kyler. He would walk differently, talk differently. He wouldn't ever visit his old neighborhoods in the Warrens. But now he saw that Azoth's world was already dying, that he would never connect with Jarl again. It had nothing to do with the lies Kyler would tell, and everything to do with Rat. It was different now. It always would be. Azoth and Jarl looked at each other for a long moment in the common room of Mama Kay's house. It was almost midnight, and the guild rats would soon be shooed out of the house. They were welcome in the common room all day, but they were allowed to sleep here only in the winter, and then only if they obeyed her rules. No fighting, no stealing, no going anywhere but the kitchen and the common room, and no bothering the adults who visited. Any guild rat who broke the rules got his entire guild banned from Mama Kay's for the winter. Usually it was a death sentence for the offender, because it meant the whole guild would have to sleep in the sewers to stay warm, and they would kill him for that. Still, the place was always crowded. There was a fireplace and a floor covered with soft rugs, good for sleeping. Those rugs had once been clean, but now were now stained from their filthy bodies. Despite the damage, Mama Kay never got mad at them, and every few months new rugs showed up. There were durable chairs the guild rats were allowed to sit on, toys, dolls, and piles of games they could play. Sometimes Mama Kay even brought them treats. Here they gambled and bragged and gossiped freely with anyone who was here, even children outside their own guild. It was the only place the guild rats were allowed to resemble children. It was the only safe place they knew. Coming back, it looked different. What had seemed so recently the very lap of luxury now was just a plain room, with plain furnishings and simple toys, because the guild rats would ruin anything better. They would stain everything and break anything delicate, not from malice, but from ignorance. The place was the same. It was Azoth who had changed. Azoth, or Tyler, whichever he was, marveled at the stench of the guild rats. Didn't they smell themselves? Weren't they ashamed, or was it just him, ashamed to see what he had been? As he always did after his reading lesson with Mama Kay, Azoth had looked for Jarl, but now that they were face to face, neither could find anything to say. I need your help, Azoth said finally. There was no way to cover what he wanted. He wasn't here to visit a friend. He was here to do a job. My help? I need to know what happened to Doll Girl. Where is she? And I need to know what happened with the guilds. I guess you wouldn't know. No, guilds weren't a part of his life anymore. Nothing was like it used to be. Your master hit you? Jarl asked, looking at Azoth's black eye. I got into a fight. He doesn't hit me. He does hit me, but not like... Azoth cut off. Not like Rat? How is he? Azoth said, trying to cover. Why don't you tell me? You're the one who killed him. Azoth opened his mouth, but seeing two littles in Mama Kay's front room, stopped. Blint made you kill Rat to see if you could do it, didn't he? Jarl asked, his voice low. No, are you crazy? In his head he could hear the echoes of Master Blint's voice from their training. Word gets out. Word always gets out. Hurt filled Jarl's eyes, and he said nothing for a long time. I shouldn't push, Azoth. I'm sorry. I should just thank you. Rat, he messed me up bad. I'm so confused all the time. I hated him, but sometimes... When Rat disappeared and I saw you walking away with Blint... Jarl blinked rapidly and stared away. Sometimes I hate you. You left me with no one. But that's not right. You didn't do anything wrong. Just Rat. And me. Azoth didn't know what to say. Jarl blinked furiously again. Shut up, Jarl. Shut. He dashed the tears from his eyes with fist. What do you need? There was something Azoth should say. He knew it. Some assurance he should give, but he didn't know what it was. Jarl had been his best friend. Was his friend. Wasn't he? But he'd changed. Azoth had changed. He was supposed to be Kyler now, but instead he was just a fraud straddling two worlds and trying to hold on as they tore apart. Whatever the cataclysm named Rat had left Azoth holding on to, one thing was certain. A chasm had opened between him and Jarl, and Azoth was afraid to even approach it. Didn't understand what it was, didn't know anything except that it made him feel dirty and scared. Jarl was letting him put the walls back up by asking his simple question, a simple question that could be answered simply, a problem that they could actually resolve. Doll Girl, Azoth said. He felt relieved to back away from his once friend, and guilty that he felt relieved. Jarl said, you know she got... Is she all right? She's alive, but I don't know if she's going to make it. They make fun of her. Without you around, she isn't like she used to be. I've been sharing my food with her, but the guild's falling apart. Things are too bad. We don't have enough food. The guild, not our guild. Azoth kept his face blank, refused to show how much that hurt. It shouldn't have hurt. He was the one who'd wanted out. He was the one who left, but it still made him feel empty. You'll be alone. You will be different, always. Jalel almost died. Turns out Rat stole his review money, and now they lost the waterfront to Burning Man, and others are closing in. They? Jarl's face twisted. If you've got to know, they threw me out of Black Dragon. Threw us all out. Didn't want buggers and rat lovers, they said. You don't have a guild? Azoth asked. It was a disaster. Guild rats without a guild were fair game for anyone. That Jarl had stayed alive since being expelled was surprising. That he had food to share with Doll Girl was amazing, and that he was willing to was humbling. Some of us have banded together for a little while. They call us the Buggers. I'm going to try to join Two Fist on the north side. Rumor is they might get the market on Durden soon. That was Jarl. Always had a plan. Are they willing to take Dog Girl too? He answered with guilty silence. I asked. I did, Azoth. They just won't do it. If you... Jarl's mouth opened to say more than closed. I'm not going to make you ask, Jarl. I've been looking out for you to give it back. Azoth lifted his tunic and unwrapped the sash full of coins. He handed it to Jarl. Azoth, this is twice as heavy as it was. I'll take care of Doggerel. Give me a couple weeks. Can you take care of her for that long? Jarl's eyes were filling with tears, and Azoth was afraid his would too. They called each other Jarl and Azoth now, not J-O and Azo. Azoth said, I'm going to tell Mama Kay how smart you are and see if she has work for you. You know, if things don't work out with Two-Fist. You do that for me? Sure, J-O. Azo? Jarl asked. Yeah. Jarl hesitated, swallowed. I just wish. Me too, Jarl. Me too.